bottom on the wall, and it's 60 by 60 inches, and it will ultimately have 15 to 20 layers of beeswax and fire. And let me check on the time, and I'll just get us started and give you guys the actual tour. Oh, good, it's 11 a.m. Okay, so this is our first live session for the Theresa Stirling Studios Membership Collective. And I just want to warmly welcome everyone. And truthfully, anyone joining us is also welcome. So we kind of cast that net out there to a few others who were interested and just wanted to welcome everybody for the live segment. The goal is to do at least two of these a month and to be generous with the time and the questions and things of that nature. So, I am going to grab one other quick tool. If you guys just wait for me, I want to make sure that I don't miss questions as they come up, and we can go a few extra minutes to make up for it. Just one sec. Okay, so with any luck, hang on. With any luck, we are coming through for you on your end. Feel free to put your name in the chat just so we know who's here, and you don't have to, it's just an option for you. Um, I just wanted to officially introduce myself. Um, I'm Teresa Sterling. I have been an encaustic artist and painter for over 20 years now, maybe 23. I'm self taught. And so I think that I have been relatable to a lot of people who are thinking about a more creative, say, career shift in life. I made my career shift later in life, and I had a biotech marketing career for a long time. And that was just so incredibly valuable for me. I came out of college, I started this career. I essentially was running my own business region on my own. So I had a lot of autonomy. I had a good salary and benefits, and I really got all of those deep experiences of what corporate America had to offer. And I really enjoyed it for the duration. There came a time, at some point after a decade plus, that I started to get stirrings of wanting to do something more creative. And so that was the springboard for me getting into art. I was not artistic as a child or as a young adult even, creative, but not artistic necessarily. I do talk with my hands, part Italian. Um, but anyway, that's just a bit about me. I made a stepwise later in life transition. I started to see artwork in various restaurants or hospitals where I was working. And I thought to myself, I would really like to do something like that. I bet I could do that. I believe I could do that. And so it took a day of fearlessness and a moment of fearlessness where I went and excuse me, I just got over a sore throat. I grabbed a ex-roommate of mine. We were in Seattle, and I said, "You got to come to the art supply store with me. I just want to get one big, huge piece of watercolor paper, and I want to do this very soft, kind of abstract image. It was kind of the back of a woman, and her hair was piled up softly, and it just made me think of expansiveness, maybe getting into the spa industry. That was something I briefly contemplated, and it made me feel grounded and serene. And so I had an image that I went from, and she goes, "You're the only person I know of that would buy a 6 foot, one piece of paper and expect to do it the first time." Didn't even occur to me that it might not work out. So I gave it my best shot. I really liked how it turned out. I ended up framing it. It was at my first home that I purchased. And it was really meaningful to me in that it was sort of the kernel of starting my new trajectory into being an artist, being a creative, being my own business owner in the sense that it was completely up to me, no co ownership, and so on. It was a stepwise progression. In the layered years there, I ended up, raising a family, married, the whole 9 yards, building a dream house, and so on. Really got to do some exciting and juicy life steps during that time. And that helped me do a stepwise transition. But I've always been driven and a striver and someone who really likes to just keep pushing things forward in a way that feels holistic and true to me. So here we are today. I've been doing the artist professional work for really the better part of 15 years doing commissions. I started out having art shows in coffee shops and places like Starbucks and Torfazioni and some hospitals, some spas. Anthropology was one of my first solo shows, and then that led to some commission work. So I just I guess it's just been constancy to purpose for me. Doing and creating art was something I could do when my kids were young. It was something I continue to do. I was still doing light commissions here or there, and then as I got more focused on doing commissions, what do you know? I ended up getting more commission sales. And you know that quote, it's one of my favorites. It's where focus goes, energy flows. And that really has been the mantra for my life, no matter what it is, whether it was getting into big pharma, corporate marketing, or getting into being a mother and a parent, or getting into later in life transition for artist. I really give it up my all. And I'm not the kind of person who does things or loves in halves. I just go all in and I enjoy the ride. I'm also not one to think, the grass is always so greener over there. I really try to be clear on what it is that will make me feel good and then go that direction. So, law of attraction definitely is at play there. And for some of you who have followed the law of attraction principles for a long time or the Abraham Hicks mantras, I do believe in a lot of that. My dad used to teach us that, you know, those things where your energy goes, where your focus goes, energy flows. So that's where I've landed creating these large scale commissions. I work in a medium in caustic that is so labor intensive. The layering, the heat, the applying the heat, leaning over a table for hours a day, that it doesn't make great sense to work on it large scale, although it makes great sense to me to do it. It's very physically demanding, which can be challenging and tiring. But on the other hand, when you see these big beauties installed in corporate spaces or in luxury residences, it really is a sight to behold. It's statement piece art. It's not prints. They're all on wood panels. And it's a big labor of love for me. I don't know what else to call it, but I sure am grateful to be doing it. And now the birthstone and birth moment, birthplace of our new membership collective. So this is something that has come about just recently. We just are doing the soft launch now. So you're in on the ground floor of hearing about it. I have been thinking about it for about the better part of a year. So I've done retreats, and those have been great fun. I've done in person workshops, and I find myself spending a fair amount of time coaching and encouraging others and really trying to lift people's best. I love it when people help me lift into my best, and I love to help others do that. So I was chatting with a friend, and we were on a little getaway. I just took spontaneously around the new year, and I talked to her about it. She said, "You absolutely need to do this and run, don't walk." And it was just that little extra push that I needed. So it got soft launched right after the turn of the new year in 2025. We're still in the early stages, but what I can tell you is this: the Teresa Sterling Membership Collective, as it stands today, is truly the aggregate and sum total of all the things I love very most in my life, professionally, personally. Um, it's creative, it's expansive, running a business. There are infinite possibilities on how to do that well. By the way, I hope this is sounding okay. I I'm going to check with you guys. Let me see if I can also read comments. I was going to do this better. This is not going to be our final platform, but as you know, we're just doing this today to get things going. So I want to make sure that I'm reading any comments that you might have as I'm doing this right now. Let's see. I'll jump in here. Um, Sorry if I'm not getting up. How about this? I'll take a break and check in on comments, but I want to make sure you guys can hear me okay. Um, let's see. Oh, let's see. Oh, you guys are so sweet. Thank you. Nice to meet you. This is amazing. I'm loving this. Keep your comments coming, and I will get to questions during and then after. They say I should have someone with me to do that, but what fun is that? I'm just here, me. And I was planning on working also, but I just wanted to give you guys a little bit more. So, for years, I've been doing art and I had a website. Then, upon request over the better part of a decade, people would ask me if I was coaching, if I would do one on one lessons, or if I could do group lessons, that kind of thing. The group lessons we did them locally. It was boots on the ground, and it was a lot of work. It took a couple of people, a couple of SUVs, packed to the gills, all the hot plates and equipment. And, we were practically burning down houses while people are sipping wine and holding blowtorches and waving at their friend across the room and making art. Nobody ever wanted to leave. We were just absolutely exhausted. At the time, my good friend Heather, who owns Conservatory Coastal Home, she and I were co-hosting those. And yes, they were a lot of fun. And yes, we got a lot of people through the door, but we might have even oversold the courses and it just got crazy for 2 hours or 3 hours. So I learned some things that probably wasn't my ideal format. Serendipity would have it, and again, I'm pretty convinced there are no coincidences. My dear, dear person, Krista Doherty, who's uber talented, she and I got together and recorded a bunch of content. And what do you know? We released some live courses by request. We started with the beginners and the intermediate and advanced encaustic workshops, and then went on to working large and shipping and retreats and so on. We launched that right around the pandemic. So while everybody was at home wanting to learn something, it was just perfect that we launched those courses. And that then brought me closer to the online learning platform and how that whole fluency works. And I think it was well received. It met the need at the time, which was one of the earliest entrants into the market with courses. I subsequently was invited to be on the leadership team doing Painting with Fire. I have great respect for all of those folks. I found one season was plenty for me only because I have my own studio practice and courses online platform. So, great love for everybody that's expanding the market for sure. And you learn that early on in these swim lanes. I'm a little bit of an anomaly in that I really feel like my lifestyle is representative of the art I do and the studio practice that I keep. And probably the reverse of that is true. Both of those are interchangeable, and that's just the way I live. Our studio gives back part proceeds to animal shelters and food banks. Over the years, it's been to education and schools as well. It's kind of been in alignment with where my life has been. When my kids were young, I was going to education auctions to donate work. And then we got into animal rescuing and fostering and all of those things. I still have the rescues and the fosters and so on. My kids have subsequently gone on to do their own, great things in the world and continue to. And so I'm a proud mom, but it's all a perfect circle. It's all a perfect circle and stew is what I'm getting at. And those who have taken my retreats know that I often show up with a smile, a can do anything attitude, a willingness to lift others, and also a little bit of chaos, seems to come along with me. And it makes it fun. It keeps the element of surprise in it. Like I'm never too tightly wound. I'm a self-taught, meaning that I don't feel hemmed in by the classical tenets of being a fine artist or someone who was, trained at some of the finer institutions where you have to stay within the lines. I'm always outside the lines. And yet I am a person of integrity and wishing well for others. And I hope if in any way I can touch your lives, that's what I'm bringing forward to it. So going forward, these videos will be more interactive and we'll do a lot more, but I am talking a lot. Part of that is I just wanted you to get to know me. If you're even remotely interested in going deeper, by all means, check out www.nextlevelwiththeresastirling.com or look up Theresa Stirling Membership Collective and you'll find it. The courses are there, the membership is there, and, I feel like if I have the privilege to show up with you in your home or in your space or your car or wherever you are at the park, I at least want to bring some value proposition. So already, I hope I have brought to you that I have enthusiasm in spades. I'm a striver. I'm an open book. The membership specifically and these lives are geared at opening up the vest. I'll show you guys whatever it is you want to learn. Let's go. Let's go big. Let's go small. Let's do shellac burn. Let's work with a torch. Let's work with a heat gun. Let's look at all the equipment. So, a couple things right out of the gate that I promised to do would be to show, I promised to show someone who's in our membership collective how the table or what the tables look like that I have. So, I'm going to take a quick drink and show you guys what that looks like. This is going to get a little bit bumpy just because I have to move this to show you what I'm up to. But little studio tour for you. And if you're ever wondering about going bigger in a space, do it. So, question comes up from time to time about the tables that I use. These are really cool, sturdy, made by a local person. They have caster wheels, if you can see that. And I'm going to put a tape measure on the height for this, but my guess is it's right around 32, 34. What's cool about these 2 is underneath, you've got storage. Mine's pretty full up right now. I've gotta thin some things out. But if you look around my studio, as we do around the world here, you can see at kind of a low eye level that the tables are really important to my practice. I can move them around. I can move them outside on a sunny day. They're really great. So here we are. We're back to the art. Okay. Let's see if I can see anything. Um, oh, oh, good. You guys can hear me. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Please share your likes. Let's see, your links for membership. I will share those. Thank you for the questions. I will share the links in the show notes after this and in the comments. And again, www.Teresa next level with teresastirling.com. And Teresa with an H and Sterling with 2 I's. Okay, the tables on height. Let me just tell you what that is. Um, let's see, we're at 32 inches high. Some of them might vary an inch or two, 32 inches, and they have a really nice thick top. One of them actually even can lift up a little bit, but we have to perfect that some. Actually, it's got a lip on it. That's what it is. It has a lip right here that can lift up. So if I'm putting something up on bike hooks, which I have up here, which is really essential because oftentimes I'm working on big panels upright, that lip on the table ostensibly would be really useful. I haven't used it much, but I love the cleverness and there's really cool bike parts used for it and we'll get there. We'll use it. Anyway, so behind me, which you may or not be able to may see, I'll take you guys for a tour to show you some of my hot wax cans. Let's just take a look at that real quick. Sorry it's so loud outside. Would you know, the one day I plan this, I also have people here doing some carpet cleaning on the inside, and so they're running their equipment. So here are my messy but good hot plates. And these are beeswax with pigments. And I use dry masonry powdered pigments at 200 degrees. Sometimes I'll use oil tubes. Everything's exceptionally messy right now just because I finished some commissions and kind of left everything as is during holidays. And I'm just getting back into the swing after some fun travel in the new part of the year. So these are the hot plates. Here's the dry pigments right here. They come in a jar. Sometimes I'll use oil tubes. I use a real mix of mixed media. Sorry about the wandering tour around here. This is a better look at this piece that I'm working on now. So ostensibly, it's kind of an abstract landscape. You have the groundedness of this dark brown, and then you have that ochre, maybe wheat fields in the middle, and then that really beautiful chambray blue that can be the sky. This is iconic of my creative style, and I'm very enamored with how my collectors have supported me over the years. I get to create very cool work for them, and I am just so grateful. Sorry about the tilts here. Okay, so let's see. Oh, gorgeous. Thank you. Alyssa, great to see you. Elaine, pretty sure you're in here. It's so great to have you guys. So I thought I would just work a little bit and talk with you guys more on what it means for me as a creative to show up and fully express myself in the work that I do, and also point out to you different tools that I'm using along the way. Um, let's see, I'm just going to get some gloves, and you guys are freestyling it with me. I'll try to keep on point with some of the things I show you. And um, first, first order of business would be, just taking one of these vats of wax and just here's how I work is I just lean in just like this and I just start to add layers and I'm a little bit, I don't want to say haphazard about it, but I'm definitely not confined about how I approach my large and caustic works. And I think that energy translates well. And as I tell the learners and students and all of those people that have been so kind to learn alongside me, we paint with our hearts. And it's kind of like if you were writing music. I assume you play and produce music, with your heart. Because if you're really moved by the notes, then, that by definition means you're loving it with your heart. You're creating it with your heart. You're doing it. And that to me is as primal as it gets. We were all born creators and it's in our DNA. Our ancestors were basket weavers and trout catchers and fire makers. And, it's so primal to still be working with these materials that are so of the earth. It's wax from bees, sap from trees, and pigments from the earth. It just doesn't get better than that. And fire. Fire is as primal and mesmerizing as it gets. So I feel really lucky to have found a medium and a fluency within it that has been with me for years. So I'm just adding some of the wax here while I'm talking with you guys. I will get better at having a more interactive platform so I can actively answer your questions. But a couple things, people always wonder how I got into this. I touched on it a little, but I used to see different work at hospitals and coffee shops, and I thought to myself, what is that medium? It's so enchanting. It's so intriguing. It's textured. It's a little bit shiny. I can see layers below layers, which I'd never really seen before. The translucent quality of encaustic work is ephemeral, it's ineffable, um it's transportive, it's sensual, it smells sweet, it's going to be around long after we are, the beeswax will be. It just is a beautiful, beautiful natural substance naturally occurring. And I did some research. Someone said, well, where does beeswax actually come from? Believe it or not, it is the 50,000, literally twice around the world tour of bees that it takes, 50,000 miles for them to fly as a collective in order to gather the pollen to make the beeswax. And I think that's something like 50,000 miles to then produce enough pollen to make 1 pound of beeswax or something like that. It is just remarkable. And each bee can only fly about 5,000 miles in its lifetime. So it's just staggering to me the delicate balance of all of that and how beeswax is produced. It's sloughed off from the abdomen of teenage bees and it's used they chew it up, the bees do, the worker bees chew it up and then push it back out and push it into those hexagonal forms in order to build the structure of the hive. It's just remarkable. So that's a little bit of your natural sciences history and lesson, but it's staggering to me and it makes me in awe of the medium that I'm working with. So I'm none too precious when I'm painting. This is a really neat scraper, a long-handled one. I don't see it often, but it's a pottery tool. And if you have any pottery supply places like we do in the Seattle area, go visit them because they are a treasure trove of cool things to dig into the wax. So here we are, and I'm just doing some really nice browns now, and I'm just layering it in wherever I feel like it, not being too precious. You can always paint over things, you can always fire it, you can always scrape it. Um, and you can always, if something just doesn't work for you, you can get rid of it. You can throw it on the burn pile. You can melt it into something else. I uh I really try to keep a zero waste studio, just meaning that I try to recycle as much as I can on plastic bag use. The waxes that I use, I often will, if I have wax around, I'll scrape it down and remelt it into grays or browns. The really nice pricey stuff I buy from RF Paints, I can get it online on Amazon. They are based out of New York and it's a superior product for sure. By that meaning, it's pre-mixed with Damar resin and it just has the right ratio of shine and sheen and the way it melts. Again, everything is melted on a hot plate at 200 degrees Fahrenheit, or even a little more, up to 220. And people ask me, can you put the beeswax art above a fireplace? And the answer is yes, as long as it's not hot to the touch. So let's see a little bit more about. I wanted to dig into more of the philosophical things for some of our membership collective folks too, because my promise to you and all of them is that we'll keep topics interesting, relevant, but also thought provoking. We'll go a bit deeper and talk about things like I get the question, how do you develop your artist's voice? What if you're an emerging artist and you want to maybe copy that person's art or get inspiration from that person's work, you know, there's a saying in the art world and perhaps the music world too. It's not where you take it from, it's where you take it to. So if you're going to be inspired by someone else's work, then it's where you lift off and take it to on your own, the spin you give it yourself. That's what's really key. And I've always liked that saying because it doesn't make us feel shameful for taking inspiration from other places. I get a lot of inspiration from social media like Instagram or Pinterest or YouTube or what have you. And then I just take it to my place, and that comes from many years of showing up. It comes from many years of missteps. I mean, I've made more mistakes than anybody. And anybody who's won hard things or had successes that we all follow, of course they've made missteps. That's just a part of life. That's a part of trying new stuff. I think people who are willing to try new things are also more quick to realize when something's not working and then pivot and go in another direction. So that probably is describing how I am or how I roll. Let's see. So, how do you discover your artist voice? I think this is a great age-old question. Again, sorry about the outside noise. We're just gonna we're gonna roll with it today. How do you discover and find your artist voice? I think that's a really good question and best unpacked to say, first of all, it takes showing up. It takes showing up fearlessly, willingly, and routinely. And that's something I try to implore everyone to do is to just show up and make your mark, shoot your shot and do the things that light you up because that's how we find our axis. It's how we find what's emerging for us. And when I mean what's emerging, I mean showing up and laying down the tracks, in this case in wax, but also just kind of being curious about what's showing up. What's showing up for you today is a little bit more thoughtful or maudlin, or is it a lot more buoyant? Is it a lot more upbeat? Does it feel like it heralds spring, or are you going into more of a dormant time emotionally? Um, all of those, there's no wrong answer, but I think those things come for us when we show up with regularity and rhythm and intentionality and good energy and purpose. And, when I say good energy, to me, that's signified by, good rest, good nourishment. Like before I came on today, I had to eat and anchor myself with some good protein. Just I'm a food lover anyway, and I'm an eater, but I just wanted to make sure that I feel totally nourished in order to bring you guys great energy. If I'm bottomed out and needing calories or protein, that's a tough way to show up. But same goes for my studio practice. I show up with good energy. If I'm dragging a little bit, I'll go out and walk the dogs, or I'll get out in nature, or go for a paddleboard, or play pickleball or something. But I really try to keep a diverse portfolio of things I draw from, like nature walks and trail runs, trail walks, getting out amongst the ferns where everything's living and breathing and giving life force. We're all interconnected. The moon's waxing and waning, the tides coming and going. I live in the Pacific Northwest, and I think I'm especially attuned to all the different rhythms of nature. I raised my kids, observing that, but we really are all connected. So that's a very cool thing to, in my opinion, be aware of. But also, I take a fair amount of my art inspiration from nature. So, finding your artist voice is about showing up with good energy and regularity, consistency. and exploration. It's about being curious, and it's about staying curious and maintaining that beginner's mind, which, you know, there's a way to look at it to say unlearning the learning. And I think it applies more and more. The more we learn, the more there is to learn, in my opinion. I find that about everything. I find it about art. I find it about encaustics specifically. I find it about love. I find it about emotion. I find it about relations, with people that you are close to or people that you're just getting to know. Um, I find it about parenting. I find it about paddle sports and racket sports. It's really remarkable. I find it about business. So, what does that really mean? Maintaining a beginner's mind is, in my opinion, staying open, staying in wonderment, and staying curious. And I try to do all of those things on the regular, which I hope, in some ways makes me more attuned to, others. And when I'm learning from them or talking with them or sharing with them or teaching alongside them, um, I think it just makes our life experience richer. That's where I am with it all. So this is just kind of a gray ochre color, and I'm using a stick. This is a paint stir stick, and that's very common for me, is to use more primitive troweling methods in my work. The work gets pretty nubby, and then I'll hit it with fire, and that'll take down some of the high marks. Okay, let me take a quick peek at any questions that I might want to tend to, because what do you know, my other device won't tell me all these things. Okay, let's see. Oh, this is so sweet. Okay, so it's not where you take it from, but where you take it to. We talked about that. Oh, thank you. So sweet. And then, oh, you guys are so sweet. Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you want to learn today. It's fantastic. And if you have any special considerations or questions you want me to address, by all means, let me know. Um, let's see. I'm just going to keep working and talking with you about some of these things. So, what does it mean to find our artist voice? You're showing up, you're making the work, you're making the mistakes. The mistakes are part of the work. The mistakes can obviously and should be part of the finished product. I've realized that more and more. And you're also realizing how to course correct with the work. So what does that mean? Course correct with the work. And that is, stuff doesn't work out. I think it's really important for us to learn how to pivot, to learn how to not let it slow our momentum, and in general, just use it as our compass points, like adjust the sails. And I think, that's metaphorical for so many things in life. We can't control everything. We can't control others. We can't control outcomes always. But when you're finding your artist voice, showing up and being open to what plays out in front of you, like I am right now. I'm saying, is this dark black going to work at the very bottom? I don't know. Let's just give it a try. I like a gradient of color in a piece on the wall. I like to see kind of a dark weighted color at the bottom, and then the gradient going up. And that brings me to a point we talk a lot about in our um, encaustic groups, and it's about composition. And while I don't profess to know a lot about art composition in general, I'm learning a whole lot more by learning from others who are out there on YouTube and so on. And composition is really about the way things are arranged or laid out in the art form. And so, for example, you have color, and there are subcategories of color and color mixing, but when you look at a piece, your eye naturally will gravitate towards the color or the movement, and it might be the blues dancing and then cascading down. So the arrangement of things, color, and maybe the lack of color is also can be very powerful and moving. And it sets up a nice contrast. If you have, say, bright orange and pinks, and then you have light, kind of just light white over here, that light white serves a purpose to lift and pronounce the bright pinks and oranges. Um, Also, the arrangement of things in terms of shapes. You might have some geometrics and some squares or circles or just little drips. I often do drips like this in my pieces all the time, where I just kind of like that. And I love to see it landing on the piece. Sometimes it stays, sometimes it gets scraped out. It's just, it's mark making. Mark making is a part of composition. All of this funnels in, believe it or not, to start to create your work, what you create, your collective voice, your sum total of inputs. Um, and you have the arrangement of things, you have color, you have shapes, you have lights, you have darks, um, and you have just the amount of imagery that you might put into a piece of art. Sometimes I'm really drawn to art that's just very aired out and expansive. I'll show you an example of that. Whoa. Like this right here would be an example of artwork that's pretty minimalistic, pretty aired out. It's like an abstract landscape, but there's a lot of white space and very little color. So there's ways to be powerful with lack of color equally, so that's important to note. Um, so our artist voice is just something that emerges, quite frankly, over time. Some of that comes with showing your work and getting your work seen out there in the world. It's kind of hard to develop your own artistic voice without getting some feedback from the rest of the world. This, by the way, is just not just, it's one of my favorites. It's a butane torch and it runs very hot. You just click it on till it whispers. And then I'll use this to kind of smooth some of these big, tall edges out while I'm talking. So, finding your artist voice is really something that probably is a long term pursuit. It certainly is for me. I feel like my style now has coalesced over the years, and I found my artist voice, which is to say, hallmarks of my work are that it's kind of refined, rustic, and it's a sophisticated earth-based palette, and it's got a lot of perfect imperfections or imperfect perfection in it. Um, and not ever looking or seeking for perfection, by the way, as a side note. My work is, I would say, deeply it transmits an energy, and people tell me that they can feel my energy come across in the work that I do. And that makes me feel really good because I do put heart and soul into every piece. It's almost like giving birth when I've finished a relatively good sized piece of work. And I do put that heart and soul into all the sizes that I do. Um, and I would say that my pieces up close have texture, and texture can be a really cool compositional element. And I leave some areas smooth and some rough textured. And I like colors like cream and bone, black, brown, cashmere, ochre, espresso, chocolate. You guys tell I love food. I draw a lot of my inspiration from cooking too. I mean, I paint like I cook, and that's really a freeing way to be. When I'm in the kitchen, I'm totally fearless. I just go for it. I'm again, part Italian, so I'm not one to measure too much or follow a recipe. I go more by taste, add a dash of this, a dash of that. Um, it doesn't make me the greatest baker in the world. I can follow a recipe if need be, and that's better for baking. But as far as cooking goes, I just sample it and say, oh, needs more pesto, needs more pepper, and so on. Um, I'm just fusing this wax while we're talking. So you guys are kind of creating a big piece with me. I'm looking forward to having this piece finished and in inventory. So that's more on creating our, finding your artist voice. Some of it is learning alongside others, just taking care not to compare ourselves to the work of others because comparison is the thief of joy. And I mean that with all of my heart. I mean it from my experience. It's easy to be in a workshop next to someone and say, oh, but my work doesn't look as refined as that person's or as glorious or whatever you want to call it. But really, your work is your work, and only you can create the work that you do. No one else in the world can do that. And so I'm a big fan of lifting others, and stepping into the work that only you can do because nobody can do that. Let's see, I'm just going to check our time here. Oh, geez. I guess we're at time. I want to make sure that I save a little bit of time for questions and answers. We'll go a few extra minutes as I promised. I'm so sorry that it's loud outside. That is totally my life. Chaos, carpet cleaners here, couple of dogs, tied up so they don't run off, but they're being really good. It's just a couple of cats, in one bedroom. Herding cats was me this morning. I was also trying to send out some invitations to an event this summer. And I'm saying, as much as I don't think I have a capacitance for chaos at times, sometimes I do really have a tray full of chaos. But ultimately, it makes me feel pretty happy. I had that cold flu last week and I feel so much better. My goodness, it's glad to be through that. I still have a little bit of a tickle cough, but wow, this study in contrast makes me feel great about being healthy. One other topic, let's see. I think for me, we touched on having your creative space, having your good, cool setup, tables, good lighting is really key. If you've ever thought about going larger, go larger. I started in laundry room. I've started in at dining room table, mother-in-law apartment, garage, you name it. I'm still craving a larger space. That will always be the case, probably. But, have your little talismans set up in your own creative space so that when you walk in, maybe you see pictures of your kids or your pets, or in my case, I've got some cool burro pictures, donkeys that are just so cute. They make me smile. I feel like I have company in the studio. Get a good speaker, set up great lighting. You can get these cool LED lights at Costco or Home Depot or any of the big boxes. And just make sure that it's a space where you can see really well in. Good tables, brown butcher paper on your tables. And yeah, tables on wheels is really nice. Take time to clean up after you've done a big project. Be better than me about that. And we talked a little bit about transferring our energy into the layers and the work that we do. It is my sincere hope that the world can see the energy and the care that I put into each piece. And may that be a marching wish for you too, is that, putting yourself into it doesn't mean trying to make it perfect. We're not ever aiming for perfect in my world. Um, because that too can be a joy stealer. And then I guess the last thought that I will leave you with is be scared and do it anyway. Be scared and do it anyway. So oftentimes I will say yes to things and just figure out how to do it later. I'll just figure it out. I mean, I'm thoughtful and guarded about what energies I have and, limiting those. I don't have endless energies or a wish to do everything, but I am always wishing to take on a new arc or do something really cool that's a stretch within reason. Or even when you're creating maybe on a size that's 12 by 12 inch and you're not sure if you should drip that wax, scrape the wax, try the shellac paint on and let it set and then hit it with fire, or even just try the torch. If you're using the heat gun, I have one on the table behind me, and you want to try the torch, do it. Let's do it. Let's figure it out. Happy to show you guys how to do those things. So, those are my thoughts for you today. Show up, be consistent, bring your full hearted self, put your energy into the things you love. In the case of your art or growing your business, there are limitless ways to run a business. The intersection of creativity and business is wildly fun and fascinating and constancy to purpose. It's not for the faint of heart. But then be scared and do it anyway. And let's see each other again. We'll aim for next Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. Think that's I'll have to check my date. And it's very likely we will be transferring over to the Thinkific platform. If you haven't visited us on Thinkific to check out the courses and the membership, please do and share it with your friends too. Whether you're interested in art, technique, or business, marketing, building high quality brands, by all means, check out the membership and the courses. This is the most exciting time to start something new. It really is. No matter where you turn, boots on the ground, online, influencer, if it's a good or a service or a product or getting paid for what you do or what you know, it's all great. And you'll get back to it what you put into it. I can guarantee you that. I had one sweet person who took our retreat email me this morning to say, I so wish I could be there today. She goes, honestly, and she lives back east, I think in just outside of Pittsburgh. She said, I just wish I could hire you to be my artist life coach. Artist life coach. That's the best thing I've heard in